If you've ever been in Columbia, Missouri, it's a big college town. Lupus is only 7 miles away as the crow flies, but the ferry is 100 years gone and nobody built a bridge. So if you want to get to Lupus, it's 90 minutes on unpaved, windy dirt roads. Now, there are about 28 people living in Lupus today. It's changed a lot since the days of the steamboat. And I wanted to be sure I could find the place, so I drove out on a Saturday afternoon in my rented Chevy Impala, pulled up right in front of the Bank of Lupus, which today is nothing more than a rusty iron safe covered by a pile of tan-colored bricks. The saplings and the vines grew through that mortar and brought that building to its knees, as Mother Nature will do if you leave a building alone long enough. And right next door was the Lupus General Store, where I had my gig, which is this beautiful general store in very nice condition with those nice sash windows with the big weights inside the windows and that metal roof, the tin roof peeling off, and got the smell in there you only get in businesses that they only open the door about 8 times a year for a folk music concert. So there's a special smell you get in these abandoned buildings. Now, I did a concert there. It was in September. I had 25 people at my concert in a town of 28. I thought it was really hot stuff. And when the show was over, the man who booked me, Doug Ely, he came up to me and he said, "Now, you don't know me very well, and you may disregard my advice, but it's 90 minutes on unpaved roads with no lighting to get back to Columbia, and it's a Saturday night, and there are a lot of drunk kids in pickup trucks doing donuts." He said, "I'd be a lot more comfortable if you spent the night in town and drove back in the daylight." Well, that's good advice. I listened. He said, "Everybody in Lupus is broke. We're too far from town to have jobs. We're all self-sufficient." He says, "If you don't mind staying with poor people, this will broaden your horizons." And I thought, right on. I'll rise to the occasion. So I put all my instruments back in the trunk of the Impala, and I got out my pillow and my suitcase and my toothbrush, and we walked down this unpaved street in Lupus. Every house in Lupus, the first floor is 10 feet off the ground, built on usually cinder blocks, because it floods there every year, and everybody's used to it. So they keep expendable stuff downstairs in the garage, but everything important starts on that first floor, 10 feet off the ground. And we walked up to this little farmhouse up on cinder blocks with 12 unpainted steps going up, and it's about a 900 square foot little white paint peeling off that shiplap sideboard they don't even make anymore, and one of those yellow bug lights illuminating this screen door, and this beautiful old couple standing in front of the door that were my hosts. And you just don't see people like this in the 21st century. I'm talking about the farmer who's got one of those white beards down to here with the tobacco stains that go all the way to the bottom. Calluses on his fingers, 1/8 of an inch thick. Not a John Deere farmer, but a guy who really pushes a wheelbarrow around and uses a hoe and a shovel. Beautiful calluses. He had this small, frail wife with the yellow ties on her braids, gray braids that went down to here, and a yellow fringe on a greasy little apron. They invited me into their kitchen, and I put my suitcase down, and I observed this kitchen. They had one of those old 19th century oak tables that probably once had 10 leaves in it for the big banquet, but now it's just the two of them. They had the little table, and they had the wooden chairs with the tightly twisted wires underneath the legs to keep them from splaying out, and the mismatched silverware and the old china plates with the chips and the grease-stained napkins. And I'm telling you, they had the same refrigerator in that kitchen my mama had back in 1963. We sat down, I took off my hat, we said grace, and I looked at these empty plates thinking, if I was in Columbia, I'd be at a steakhouse with a great big baked potato. And this man said, "Let me serve you the meal," and he opened up this refrigerator, and there was nothing in that refrigerator. No ketchup, no mustard, nothing, except one of those half-gallon containers of cottage cheese you get down at the Walmart. And he took off the top, and he carefully peeled back the plastic, and he carefully measured out 3 tablespoons of this cottage cheese onto each of our plates, and he covered it up, and he put it away in the refrigerator, and I guess that's all there was going to be for dinner. I'm thinking, how can I diplomatically get out of here before it's too late to get a meal in Columbia? So we ate this cottage cheese, which only made me hungrier. It's like an appetizer, and he says, "Let me show you where you're going to spend the night." And we went into what I already knew was the only other room in that building, and there was one queen-size bed. He looked at me, and I looked at him. He says, "Oh, I know what you're thinking." He says, "This is going to work just fine. We're all going to leave our clothes on. My wife's going to climb in first and sleep next to the wall. I'm going to climb in second, and you're going to sleep out here on the outside. Now, would you be so kind as to remove your shoes?" I decided that the war was lost, and I was spending the night. I took off my shoes. I was hungry. My stomach was growling. I lay down on the bed. I turned my back to that man, and I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. And in the middle of this dark and dreamless sleep, there was an enormous commotion. I woke and thought it was a garbage truck before I realized there's no services in Lupus. I realized in hindsight it was probably a mule or a horse in the barn kicking against garbage cans against the wooden wall and making this enormous commotion. Well, we all woke up suddenly, and this farmer was so upset. He said, "Oh, piffle!" And he hopped out of bed, and he slipped in his boots, and he marched out that door, and he slammed that door behind him, and I'm laying there in the dark, in the bed, with this farmer's wife. Well, I hear a voice say, "Well, now's your chance." So I got up and I ate the rest of that cottage cheese.